started from?
No, I mean, that's very difficult, because you've got to remember, that's the first thing you hear, you're still asleep, so it's hard to orientate directions or so on. It seemed to me to be moving from east to west, but that is, you know, that's very much a first impression. I wouldn't put too much store by that, but certainly this sound to me had the hallmarks of an air crash. We heard a noise overhead, followed almost instantaneously by this very, very loud bang that set off all the car alarms, and the upshot of that I'm still looking at. I'm watching these balls of orange fire in the sky, the flames still brightening the whole horizon. It's not yet dawn here, it's just starting to lighten, but the light that is reflecting, casting its flickering illumination over everything is this large orange fire on the horizon of St Albans.
Okay, Jeff, do stay with us. We're trying to piece all this information together, but if you're just joining us here on Sky News Sunrise, as Jeff has just explained, there has been a loud explosion in the St Albans area. We believe that it may be near a fuel depot close to junction 8 of the M1. I think, Jeff, if you're able to explain exactly what happened and when it started.
Yeah, it was just after 6 o'clock. We were asleep and we heard this loud, low, rumbling, roaring sound overhead. There was nothing preceded that. There was no sound that would suggest, an aircraft low or an aircraft in trouble, but just this very loud. The only thing I've heard that's anything like it is, when I was in Belgrade some years ago, cruise missiles overhead. So it sounded like an aircraft engine overhead. There was then, almost immediately, a very, very loud explosion. We all got up, of course, rushed to the window, and we saw on the horizon here, about a mile or a mile and a half east of the centre of St Albans, what I'm looking at now, which is a large orange glow, a big fire on the horizon. There's a huge ball of fire there I've just seen lighting up the sky. So there's a lot, whatever it is, there's a lot of material burning. It's still burning very brightly, and that's what, some 15 minutes now since the people in St Albans, where I live, where I'm speaking from, we were woken from our beds by this very loud roar overhead, followed almost immediately by an explosion, the result of which I'm looking at about a mile and a half away on the horizon. A big, big fire, balls of flame in the sky, orange flames, their glow brightening up around, and this huge plume of black smoke. We know that the area is near to this fuel depot. This could be that sort of smoke burning fuel, but it's a big plume of smoke. You'll see it, people will see it as they wake this morning for miles around.
All right, Jeff. We're going to of course keep going with this. Now, one of the things that you were saying before was that you thought that it might be burning fuel. Are you able to perhaps smell anything which might give some evidence to attest to that?
No, we're not close enough yet, nor is my sense of smell that keen, but the character of the smoke, if I can put it that way, is like that. It's dense, heavy, dark-coloured smoke, but no, there's no scent of burning fuel or anything like that, or which would give us some indication.
Jeff, we're just hearing actually, and from another witness, that it was so powerful, the explosion, that it blew out the windows at the Ramada Hotel near Hemel Hempstead, and we understand that there are reports of a few injuries there, so we're certainly going to keep across that at the moment. I wonder if you can update us on the emergency services, whether you can see any evidence of them moving into action.
No, I'm too far to see or hear any traffic on the roads near there. I can hear the usual, the ever-present sound in this part of the country of the distant hum of traffic. So the roads are still open, but no, I can't hear two tones. I can't see anything in the sky which would suggest emergency service, police helicopters and so on. At the moment, all I'm seeing is the normal routine early morning aircraft, probably in and out of Luton or Heathrow. We're not far from Luton Airport here. It's only about 10 miles as the crow flies, probably about 20-25 miles from Heathrow. So we're in a busy crossroads, as it were, of air traffic. That seems to be resuming as normal from the aircraft lights I can see in the sky. But believe me, your gaze from where I'm standing in the centre of St Albans is drawn towards this. You can't believe this is happening in your own town. This horrific fireball on the horizon with this plume of
Jeff?
fumes rising above it into the sky.
Jeff, we're going
almost as brightly as ever.
to leave it there with you for the moment.
We'll give you an opportunity to get closer to what's happening, Jeff, and talk to some other witnesses.
Yes, well, we'll speak to you soon, but in the meantime, let's talk to Richard Coles, whose mother has had to be moved as a result of that explosion from her home near the Buncefield fuel terminal. Richard, just bring us up to date with what you know.
Well, I was asleep in bed, woken up by the explosion, as most of Hemel Hempstead has as well. We live just on the other side of the town, and we experienced the whole house rocking and being woken up like that. The whole sky went bright orange. Sort of over the rooftops, you could see the flames licking, and that's a good, 2-3 miles away. I phoned my mother because she lived outside of town to make sure she was okay. She was panicking. Apparently the roof slightly lifted, the whole house rocked. There's a big crack in the ceiling down the hallway. It's lifted the loft hatch out. She's on her way over here. They haven't actually evacuated the Leverstock Green area as of yet, but apparently they're evacuating all the people that are in the hotel nearest to Buncefield. She's saying she can see sort of 50-60 foot flames licking up in the sky from the depot.
Okay, Richard, thank you very much indeed for telling us all that. We're actually going to return now to our reporter, Jeff Mead. Jeff, we're hearing that there's been a second explosion. Apparently, you've heard that as well. Just tell us what you can.
Yeah, just about 30 seconds ago, a second subsidiary explosion, much less loud than the original one, but again from the same area of this fuel dump. So a second explosion. The sky lit up again briefly. Could have been another tank igniting, but certainly a second explosion within the last minute from the site of this fire on the edge of St Albans. It's still burning brightly. I'm still looking at the flames now, but a second explosion within the last 30 to 40 seconds.
Viewers are just joining us here on Sky News Sunrise. It's 24 minutes past 6. There are reports of at least one loud explosion followed by a second explosion, so powerful that it has blown out some of the windows in the Ramada Hotel near Hemel Hempstead. We believe that this incident is centred around a fuel depot near Junction 8 of the M1. These are all unconfirmed reports at the moment, and none of the emergency services are reporting this incident at all. Our reporter Jeff Mead, of course, was woken by this explosion, and we're going to be speaking to a number of witnesses about what has happened in the early hours of this morning in St Albans.
Yes, in fact, we can speak to one of them now. Roy Mortimer is on the line for us this morning. Roy, just tell us what you've experienced this morning.
Hi there. Yes, at this moment in time, it seems to be a lot of fire engines coming from everywhere. Hatfield on some of these fire engines. Also, there's been explosions left, right and centre. As you can hear in the background, more fire engines. Flames are quite high, and there seems to be more tanks blowing up.
Roy, any indication of how great an area has been affected?
Sorry?
Any idea of how large scale the area affected is?
Hello?
Roy, can you hear us?
I can just about hear you.
Okay, well, I'll try and speak as clearly as I can. Are you able to tell from your vantage point how big the area which has been affected is?
The police have called off all the roads. They're actually making me move my car now and everyone else's car out of the way at the moment because of the amount of fire engines that are turning up here. Yeah, they're asking me to move my car.
Well, we'll have to let you go and move that car, and hopefully we can get contact with you again in just a moment. Paul Garnett, though, is another witness to this event. He joins us on the phone now. Very good morning to you. What can you tell us?
Good morning. What I can tell you is that at the moment there's a huge plume of flames. There's police, fire brigade coming from every direction. It's an absolute massive explosion. Woke us up just after 6 o'clock this morning.
Paul, how close are you to the actual area?
We're actually in the Woodhall Farm area, which is right next to the oil refinery.
And just take us through exactly what happened and how you were woken this morning.
Well, but basically, when the explosion went off, the house just shook very, very violently. And we got up, because obviously we hadn't a clue what it was, looked out the back bedroom, and there was just plumes of smoke and flames everywhere.
We're getting reports of 2 further explosions. Can you confirm that?
I can indeed. I've heard both explosions, yes.
And how close are you now? Were you able to see those explosions or just hear them?
Just hear them.
And you can see flames, though, in the area?
Exactly, yeah. I can see the big plume of smoke at the moment. And
how high are those flames?
Sorry?
How high are those flames?
Oh, they're going 100 feet or more into the air.
And that's suggesting that there is an incident at the fuel depot. How well do you know the area?
Without a doubt.
Right, okay. And what are the police in the area doing? Are they trying to move you away?
They're not moving us away, because I'm actually just stood in the back of my bedroom.
Right, but you're probably expecting to move. Are you that close that you feel you might be in danger?
Possibly.
Right, okay. And what's the feeling in the area? Are there other neighbours that are up and about watching this scene?
Yes, there certainly is.
So in your opinion, there's no one that could sleep through this?
No, without a doubt. No.
What are you going to do now?
Well, we're going to sit tight until such cases as we are moved.
Okay, Paul, thank you very much for updating us on the situation. Let's just update you with what we know so far. In the past few moments, there's been a report of a 3rd explosion in the Hemel Hempstead area. Our reporter Jeff Mead alerted us to this story at 6:05 this morning when he was rocked by a loud explosion, we believe, in a fuel depot north of London, close to junction 8 of the M1 motorway. We understand that the explosion was so loud and so powerful that it actually blew out windows at the Ramada Hotel close to Hemel Hempstead, where we understand there are a few injuries. We don't know exactly how serious those injuries are at the moment. The emergency services are not reporting anything at the moment, and we understand that they're only just attending the incident. As soon as we have further details, of course, we'll update you on that.
Yes, the witness that we were just speaking to before, saying that he was seeing fire engines converging on the area this morning, rushing to the scene of those explosions. There have been 3 in total in the last half hour or so. As Steve was saying, our reporter Jeff Mead telling us that he'd been woken by an extremely loud rumbling in the sky. He likened it to a roar above the house, and he said that this was certainly no routine incident. It is in the area of the Buncefield fuel terminal. It's also not that far from Luton Airport and indeed Heathrow Airport. We're talking about an area which is some 25 miles north of London, and Jeff Mead was telling us before that he was looking at plumes of smoke rising some 200 to 300 feet into the sky. He said that as far as he could tell, it did look to be burning fuel. And yes, he was saying that this certainly was absolutely no routine incident.
Well, as you can see from the map there are a number of major roads in the areas, one of which is the M1, which we understand has been closed around the incident. In amongst those stuck in the traffic is one of our Sky News producers, Anwar Tambay. Anwar, a very good morning to us. What can you see from where you are?
Well, I'm actually on the motorway, right opposite where the explosion seems to have happened, and it's a massive fire with huge plumes of smoke right going up into the sky. There's lots of ambulances and firemen and also police cars all over the place. I mean, I heard this explosion on the way in from work. The massive explosion. I heard it in Luton, which is where I live. And I didn't see anything. Obviously, then driving into work, I saw this huge ball of flame. I mean, these explosions are still going off at the moment, as we speak. It seems to be. I know it to be an industrial area, and there seem to be kind of big kind of storage warehouse type things. But it's quite a large residential area as well around it.
Since you've been sitting there, you have heard other explosions then?
Yeah, they're going off kind of on a fairly regular basis. They're quite large bangs you can hear. I mean, the fire seems to have taken hold of quite a large area. Something I'd say something like 100 to 200 square yards. right opposite Junction 8 and between Junction 8 and Junction 9 of the M1.
And how close is this to residential areas?
It's pretty close to the residential areas, actually. I mean, I know Hemel Hempstead quite well. Where the explosion is taking place, I think, is where the industrial area is, in fact. But there's houses, big houses all around there. So, it looks like quite a big incident.
And Anwar, initial reports suggested that the Ramada Hotel close to Hemel Hempstead had windows blown out as a result of the incident, and we understand that there may be some injuries there. Does that tie into where you think it's located?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I'm not surprised because there's some debris blown over the motorway where I am at the moment, actually. So it must have been a pretty big explosion. As I said, I live in Luton, and I heard the bang as if it was next door. And this is about 5 to 6 miles down the road. So it looks like it's quite a huge incident.
And from your position, Anwar, can you see emergency services attending the scene?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them. Yeah, I mean, as I said, the firefighters and ambulances and police cars are all over the place. I mean, I can see from where I am sitting on the motorway that more of them are going towards the scene. So they've closed off quite a large part of the area now. So it obviously appears to be a very major incident.
Do you think you're close enough for the police to want to move you?
Not at the moment, but I suspect they will very shortly indeed. I mean, they haven't actually closed the motorway where I am, so but I suspect they might do so very shortly indeed.
Okay, Anwar, thank you very much for updating us on that. We'll be, of course, keeping in contact with you throughout the morning.
Let's now talk to a witness. Noel Hurley is on the line this morning. Noel, just tell us what you've experienced so far in the last half hour or so.
Well, I woke up to a huge explosion and the whole house shook and really didn't know, what we were facing. Really, I mean, it was an incredible explosion.
Our reporter Jeff Mead was saying before that he was also woken from his sleep by this incredibly loud explosion, but he likened it to a rumbling coming from above.
Well, yes, and to be honest with you, having been a traveller to Japan and been in the odd small earth tremor, that's kind of what it felt like, to be honest. The whole, the house shook, dust and debris came off the ceiling, and that's what you wake up to. So, yeah, I mean, a tremendous explosion, and, I can see the sky's flickering. Can't see any flames from where I am. I'm in the centre of St Albans, but certainly you can see the sky's sort of flickering. There's been about 3 or 4 booms since.
We are hearing, Noel, that this explosion was at the Buncefield fuel terminal at Leverstock Green. How close are you to that area?
A couple of miles away, I would say.
We were also hearing some reports earlier that there have been some injuries. Are you seeing anything to attest to that?
No, I mean, from where we are, I'm right in the centre of St Albans, so from where we are, there's a huge explosion. All the car alarms went off. I live opposite a hotel. Its alarms went off, etc. But that's really, as much as it is.
And are you seeing any fire engines or police or ambulance heading towards the area?
You can hear the sirens, and you can see the sort of flickering in the sky, really.
Okay, Noel Hurley, thank you very much indeed for telling us your experiences this morning.
Just going to very quickly run through all the text messages I'm getting through at the moment. I'm literally receiving thousands and thousands of different emails. People from Harpenden saying they've heard a 4th explosion. The explosion shook Watford. We're hearing from our Sky News presenter Julie Etchingham and East Sheen that she was woken by this explosion as well. Someone else from Ealing woke to the explosion shaking their house. We were woken up by explosion in Welwyn Garden City 15 miles ago, another viewer says. I live 10 miles away in Dunstable. I heard it, says Niall Lynch. We heard heard a loud noise and our house was shaken. That's from Jags in Berkshire. We heard the bang in Maidenhead. We had a fourth explosion. I live in Hemel, says Hayley Coleman. Our house shook from the first explosion. We live in Denham, Buckinghamshire, says Emma Birch. My name's Andy. We live in West Youghal in Surrey, so some considerable distance away from this incident. We were woken by the house shaking at 6 o'clock this morning. This was followed by the car and house alarms going off, so you get an idea of just how loud that explosion was to send off a car alarm so far away from the incident. People from Milton Keynes are saying that they were shaken by this incident. Literally hundreds and hundreds of you getting in contact with us. We're getting a lot of people saying that they're in Middlesex. They were woken by this as well. Thanks, John Bushell, for getting in contact with us this morning. Keep your texts and emails coming in. I know you're watching us on television and updating us with the situation from where you are. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
And also, if any of you have access to any technology which can get pictures to us here at Sky News, we'd certainly appreciate them coming through to us. news@sky.com is the email address to use. If you are able to get any images to us, we'd be incredibly grateful to receive them. I'm just actually getting a message from our own Joe Wheeler, our weather presenter, saying that it was audible here as well. Not in the studio, but our technical people here in West London also heard that extremely loud explosion, which we now understand happened near Hemel Hempstead. It would appear to be at the Buncefield fuel terminal near Leverstock Green. Catherine Whitmarsh is on the phone for us. Catherine, just tell us what you've witnessed this morning.
Hi, good morning. About 6 o'clock this morning I was woken up by my bed literally shaking, and I heard a huge explosion, and my first thought was that a plane had crashed near my house because it was so loud. I jumped up and went to my parents' bedroom, and on the way down our loft door had fallen down and the ladder had fallen down. I went into my mum and dad's room and their windows hadn't broken, but they'd burst open with the power. First of all, we thought it was a plane crash, but we can see, because we live in the nearest residential area to where the depot is. It's a village called Leverstock Green, just off the M1 Junction 8. We live by some farms in that area, and from my bedroom window and our living room window, you can just see these huge, massive orange flames. It's huge.
Catherine, we are getting reports that it does appear to be something that's taking place at the Buncefield fuel terminal. From where you are, does that sound like something that's possible?
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, between us and that area, there's only a Holiday Inn hotel, and there's also a BP fuel garage, and then it's the Buncefield depot, so we're really, really close to where it is, and we're assuming that's what it is, because we've heard all of the explosions this morning, and from where we live, that's the direction that it's travelling from.
And we also know that the emergency services are on their way to the area, if not have already reached the area. Can you see what's happening at all?
We can just see and hear the lights going past. We can't actually see the depot from where we are. We can just see the huge orange flames and just hear the fire engines and police cars going past.
And you can see plumes of smoke rising into the sky, I assume.
Yeah, it's filled. I mean, from where we are, we can just see loads of fields and woodland and trees, but it's just behind all of the trees, it's just huge puffs of smoke and massive orange flames.
Do you think that you might be told to leave your house? We know that one lady this morning whose son rang in was forced to leave her house near the area, near the Buncefield fuel terminal, because of this explosion.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they can't get the fires under control and more explosions happens this morning, then we could be, because as I said, we're closest, Leverstock Green's the closest residential area. I mean, we're about a mile away from the depot, so we're the nearest houses to the depot, so we probably could do. I mean, if the explosions keep occurring this morning, then it's likely that we could do, yeah.
Was there any actual damage done to your house, Catherine?
No, I mean, as I said, the windows in my parents' bedroom flew open and the loft came down, a couple of pictures came off the wall, but other than that, luckily nothing happened to the cars or the house or anything. It was just as the house shook.
So what is it that you're going to do now? Are you going to wait and be told what to do by the police?
Yeah, we're literally just going to sit at home and just wait. I know it sounds horrible to say, just to sit and watch, but we're just going to sit and wait until we hear it, whether it's safe or not to stay in home or not.
OK, Catherine Whitmarsh, thank you very much indeed.
Let's just go back to some of the text messages we're receiving. A few moments ago I received a message from someone. There's no name, but they said they have actually been to the scene where there are a number of police, and they say that there are buildings down in the area. I'm not sure whether he's referring to residential or industrial buildings. If you're able to text back with more information, that would be much appreciated. We're getting messages from people in Kingston, in Slough. All of these people were woken just after 6. Now, a number of you are going into detail of exactly what you heard. It sounded like some sort of rolling thunder before an explosion. That's what a lot of you are saying, but they were certainly confirming that there have been other explosions since, especially those in the St Albans area, and particularly around Dunstable as well. So it's quite a large area that this is covering at the moment. Heard strange rumblings in Ipswich, our latest texter is saying as well, so that's some considerable distance away. Also, someone living in Earl's Court in London said that their back door shook just after 6 this morning. I'm getting some pictures through. I'm going to try and get these up to you in just a moment, actually. Ben Godber, thank you for sending these in. We're going to try and get some of these to you in a moment. I'll tell you what I can see at the moment, but they're quite large flames. Just for our graphics department, they've come in just a moment or so ago, if we're able to get those up for you. And they're basically showing quite large flames going into the sky. He describes them about 3 stories or so. We heard earlier from our reporters in the region that they were suggesting they're about 100 feet into the air. These are quite clearly taken on his mobile phone in a hurry. Thank you, Ben, for those. We're going to get those in just a moment. Lee Ashby's just sent in a picture as well. He says it's from the Harpenden Road area of St Albans. It's showing a similar thing. It's from some distance, but you can certainly see the extent of the incident with the flames in the area as well. So please do keep your pictures coming in. news@sky.com is the email address. Also, you can text us with the very latest details, which you've been doing in your thousands, I have to say, since this incident happened. 84501 is the number. A lot of people saying there's huge cloud of black smoke in the area now, and that the explosions are continuing, which of course ties in
when the Tories were appealing against a bad economic backcloth to
We're getting more texts in telling us of the severity of this explosion. It was obviously incredibly powerful. Just reading one text message here from a viewer saying, I live a mile away and I've lost the front of my house due to the explosion. Somebody else sending us a text message saying that they heard a long, loud rumble and a massive explosion which shook the house and blew the loft hatch out. That person in Redbourne as well. So it's obviously going a long way out. Many of you far away from the scene of the explosion saw it, or felt it or heard it. And our reporter Jeff Mead was saying before that he was woken up from his sleep by the sound of a long, loud rumble which seemed to come from overhead, and that's certainly something that many of you have also been saying that you witnessed, that you felt the house shake, and that's how you were woken up this morning. Of course, we're going to continue to try and get eyewitnesses on the phone from that incident, and we'll probably be speaking to Jeff Mead as well as soon as we can to get the very latest on that.
Yes, Trevor Hare actually has just texted in to say that he felt the vibration at Herne Bay in Kent, so that's an extremely long way from the incident there on the coast. Everyone, it appears, in the southeast of England has felt it to some sort of extent. We'll try and get you updated on what the emergency services are saying about the incident very shortly here on Sky News, but as it appears at the moment, they are just attending and assessing the situation at the scene. Susie has just emailed in to say we were woken by a house shaking and a loud bang just after 0600 this morning. We live in Datchet, Berkshire, near Windsor and Heathrow. It sounded, she says, like an aircraft crash. Of course, we haven't had any confirmation of that. It did happen near a fuel depot. That's what the assumption is at the moment. One of our engineers, Laurie Phillips, has certainly been in the area driving out and about for us. Laurie, what have you seen?
Well, I just coming into work. I live in Aylesbury, and I've come down the Hemel bypass, joined the M1 at junction 20, and just as I joined, there was a flash. First of all, I thought it was a speed camera or something like that, and then literally the car was sort of like a blast pressure wave hit the car. And I first thought was maybe an aircraft's down, because I know there's a lot of Heathrow traffic that time in the morning. But yes, it was quite weird.
Laurie, we're just watching the pictures now that our viewers are sending in of what you heard, and it certainly shows the size of what the explosion was likely to have been, because the flames are going right up into the air. After the first initial explosion, then what did you hear?
Just a rumble, but I do know of that fuel depot, but so my first thought was an aircraft down, but I've only actually learnt what it is in the last 20 minutes when I've arrived at work here, so I'm learning as you are at the moment, but it's certainly a worrying sort of thing. It just sort of shook the car a bit.
And how close do you think you are to the actual incident, Laurie?
I'm in work now, I'm in Sky now, but at the time, it was at 6:05. I just heard the 6 o'clock news on the radio, and so I know it was at sort of 6:05. And I suppose I was, at that time, on the M1, coming up to junction 19, so I suppose about 3-4 miles.
Okay, Laurie, thank you for that. As you see, we're bringing you in live pictures that we've just received from our viewers around the country, showing the scene near Junction 8 of the M1 near Hemel Hempstead of this explosion that happened at 6:05 this morning. Please keep your pictures coming in. Really appreciate that. News@sky.com, or text us with the very latest on 84501.
Let's talk now to Paul Hayes, who was very close to the Buncefield fuel depot at the time of the explosion. Paul, just tell us what you can see and what happened to you this morning.
Morning. 6:10, I heard the explosion, and I shot out the house to see what it was, because I thought something seriously happened. I got into the industrial estate of Hemel Hempstead, just behind the fuel dump. And what I heard first was all the alarms going off. And basically, as I was getting closer to the fire, I noticed all the buildings were smashed and falling down. But then I spoke to someone else who was just round the corner, and he explained to me, you better get out, because one of the petrol dumps, one of them had exploded, and he thought that the other one would explode next to it. So then I turned around and got out quick, but as I noticed, a lot of the buildings were falling down and collapsing.
Can you still see those plumes of smoke and the flames which were rising up into the sky, which we'd been hearing about this morning?
Yeah, of course I can.
And emergency services are at the scene. Are they any closer to being able to put out these fires?
Well, it's going to be a hard job.
How built up is that area, and what sort of an extent of it is actually residential?
A majority of it is all industrial area. There is residential very close on the other side, just behind it, but majority of it is all industrial estate.
We know also that there have been some injuries reported since those blasts. Are you able to see anything to prove that?
No, not really, because when I got in there, I was in the industrial estate, and I'm sure there's people been hurt, but I wasn't taking a chance. I had to get out myself.
All right, Paul Hayes, many thanks indeed for your time.
You're welcome.
Joining us in the studio now is Andrew Carey, sound engineer here for us at Sky Centre. Andrew, what did you see? What did you hear?
What did I hear? I was just about to get up for work. I'd just come into the bedroom, and then suddenly I just felt this a rumble, and almost I was blown off my feet. Now, most of the windows in the house were closed. Immediately I thought, explosion.
And you thought it was something right next to you? It was
yes,
I thought
it was that intense. It was right. It felt like it was kind of within at least half a mile of us. Now,
people writing in actually from as far away as Harrow on the Hill, saying they thought that it was right next to them.
Well, I've just spoken to some the security people here, and they felt it here in Osterley, in West London. So, so initially I thought explosion, possibly an aircraft. But I looked out the window, and you could see a glow from where my bedroom window is. You can kind of see across towards Hemel Hempstead. Now, Hemel's probably about 8 miles away, and you could see an orange glow, but you can't really tell whether that's to do with the street lights or whether it's to do with the actual explosion.
So you weren't able to tell how close to the Buncefield fuel terminal it was?
No. It was such an explosion. When I then went back to the rear of my house, all the air vents in the bedrooms and the thing, all the kind of dirt that had been acclimatised in it had just been blown straight across the floor. So we felt it was kind of towards the M1 side, or the M1, M25 side of the house, and it was just like kind of dirt everywhere.
Were we able to see what the emergency services were doing?
No, it was quite surprising because at this point I didn't leave the house for another 10 minutes and the roads were completely quiet and there was actually no emergency services. Now normally it's quite common to have fire engines coming past the end of my road quite regularly because it's the main route to the M1 and the M25. But there was absolutely nothing, and once I got onto the M25 about 20 past 6, again no emergency services at all. It was quite strange.
Did you see people coming out onto the streets at all? I mean, obviously there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have witnessed this incident this morning.
Yeah, when the initial explosion happened, pulled the curtains back, and you could see all the other curtains twitching down the street because he'd obviously woken up a lot of people.
This is something that Jeff Mead, our reporter, was saying earlier. He also lives in the area, and he was saying that straight away it appeared to him to be burning fuel, not a traffic accident or anything routine at all. Did you know straight away that there was something quite untoward about this? Very much so. I thought, well, can it be thunder? I thought, no, winter, it can't be thunder. It sounded like a very loud, kind of mega loud thunderclap type thing. But it was the kind of the movement of the air which kind of said, well, that definitely is not thunder, because that's massive explosion, that is. Okay, Andrew, thank you very much indeed for sitting in with us this morning.
We've had so many emails and text messages from you. We've had more than 1,500 individual witnesses to this event since the explosion at 5 past 6, and as I'm talking to you, another 50 have come in. So please keep those coming in. We've got some pictures that you're seeing now. We'll get through those as quickly as we possibly can. Let's talk to James Chewy, though, who I believe is associated with a business very close to this oil depot. A very good morning to you, James. What do you know?
I was leaving my house at 5 to 6 this morning. We live very close, just between Hemel and Radlett, and the whole house and the surrounding area shook with an almighty bang. A couple of minutes after that, I was getting reports of massive damage around Cherry Tree Lane, which is where our business is sited. Our on-site security team were reporting massive structural damage and explosions from the terminal.
Yes, one witness a short time ago, James, was suggesting that buildings were down in the area. Can you confirm that?
I can confirm that there is surrounding damage. The extent of that, it's very difficult to assess. But
is that to industrial buildings? It's not residential, is it, that area?
It's probably 90% industrial.
So there are some people that would be living close to this depot?
There are a number of houses around the area, but it's a predominantly industrial area, and you are talking very large industrial estate with significant blue chip companies on site, including companies like Dixon's.
James, how much do you know about this particular oil depot? I've just had a text message in from an anonymous viewer. Says that this depot supplies Heathrow with aviation fuel by pipeline, so it's actually connected to the airport itself.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, it has a very regular tanker delivery, both inbound and outbound, and in fact, Friday evening, when we were leaving the office buildings next door, you know, a large amount of tankers leaving as normal. So the thing for me that makes me think otherwise is actually the noise that occurred earlier this morning as I was leaving, which ties in with what your original reporter said of the sort of low-level rumbling.
Something that may be of concern. I've just got another text message through. Thank you, whoever has texted this in to me. But they say that there's a traveller's site very close indeed to this depot. They reckon less than 1,000 metres away. And bearing in mind the size of this explosion, there must be some concern about those people. Are you aware of that traveller's site?
No, I'm not aware of a traveller's site. But the security on the depot is very good because the buildings in the surrounding area also house companies is also very good. So you've got to remember that you are immediately under the final approach to Luton Airport.
Right, okay. And how close are you actually now to the incident? What can you tell us that's happening right now?
Well, I can only report from our people on site. I mean, I've just gone straight back into my home because we can't get out anywhere. What we know is that very, very bad structural damage in the surrounding area, large-scale operation by the emergency services, massive closures, and we're obviously stay tuned.
Well, James, stay tuned to us as well. We'll try and keep you updated from all our other witnesses in the area. Thank you very much for that. James there headlining that he believes there's great structural damage in the area as a result of this huge explosion and a series of explosions that followed shortly after 6:05. And we understand they're also evacuating now the Ramada Hotel near Hemel Hempstead. We had initial reports, of course, of windows being blown out at that hotel and a number of injuries. Not sure how serious those injuries are, but certainly serious enough now to evacuate that hotel. We're talking about structural damage in the area. It's just possible that they might have sustained structural damage at that particular hotel.
Yes, just reading through some of your messages this morning. Many thanks to all of you who are writing in. We're getting one here from Dan Paper saying that he can confirm it was a massive fire and that there are still explosions ongoing this morning. Let's talk to Amanda Porter. Amanda, just tell us where you are and what you're experiencing.
I'm at Woodhall Farm in Hemel Hempstead. We were woken up at about 6 o'clock. First of all, I actually thought it was an aircraft going over, and the whole house shuddered, and actually our loft roof hatch sort of came down. I'm now standing outside in the back garden. It's just pitch black out there, and we can just see the flames, and the helicopter's just gone over. Everyone was in the streets, and also the car alarms were going off and house alarms. I've rang my friend in Neverstock Green, and she mentioned being evacuated. Not necessary at the moment, but there was talks of it. Everyone's a bit shaken up, really. It's a bit of a not really know what to do.
Are you able to see the emergency service at all?
I can just hear them. Obviously, the helicopter's just gone over, but it's just black. The air's just black with loads of flames. I mean, we did walk down the road and have a look, but it's just bright orange flames. But I work at Breaksfield Park, which is near the Holiday Inn. So we're normally on high alert for things like this. But we did initially, like I said, think it was an aircraft, but now we're just waiting on the news, really.
It sounds like an incredibly frightening experience. Just tell us, if you will, what the feeling is amongst people there.
Initially, everybody came out, and like I said, they said it is definitely an aircraft, because there was like a rumble before going overhead. Then the bang happened, and then there was such more of a rumble after. I actually was lying there thinking there's a plane on the way, to come through the house. But like I said, everyone's just a bit nervy and not really knowing what to do. I mean, my mum lives in Hatch End in Pinner, and I'm waiting for her to give us a call, because people are saying they've heard it as far as 8-9 miles away, which is exactly where they are.
Actually, quite a lot further than that from what we're hearing. Amanda, many thanks indeed for ringing in.
It's 7 o'clock, you're watching Sky News Sunrise. There's been a series of loud, powerful explosions near the Buncefield oil depot close to Hemel Hempstead. We're getting reports from eyewitnesses throughout the region talking about flames that you're seeing there in our pictures that we've received from viewers that go hundreds of feet into the air. There is the Ramada Hotel, which we understand has now been evacuated, where there have been a number of injuries after windows were blown out. We've been receiving text messages and emails in the hundreds and thousands now talking about explosions heard as far away as London and the Kent coast. Jeff Mead, our reporter from St Albans, first alerted the country to this incident. Jeff, where are you now and what can you see?
I'm actually right at the scene of the explosion. My precise location is Breaksfield Park, right on the edge of the town of St Albans, close to the M1 motorway. Green Lane is where I am, and that's about 400 to 500 yards from this fuel depot, which I have to tell you, the explosion occurred at about 6:05. it's still burning fiercely. There are still bright orange flames. I can see on the horizon here still this ever-growing plume of black smoke. I've spoken to one official, he wouldn't give his name, from the oil depot, which is burning. He's spoken to his night duty man, who he thinks was as close as anyone to the explosion. Fortunately, he has survived unhurt. A lot of police here now, of course, as you would expect. 4 or 5 cars immediately in front of me, fire engines beyond them, an emergency service helicopter overhead, another police car arriving as I speak. So the emergency plan, of course, well prepared for this sort of eventuality, swinging into action. No word of casualties yet, but the fire here at Hemel Hempstead, on the edge of the town, close to the motorway, at this oil depot, still blazing, still fiercely aflame. There are, as I said, a lot of fire appliances here. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just in my field of vision on this motorway just off the M1. None of them are trying yet to get into the depot, and I haven't yet had a chance to speak to any of the fire officers, but my guess is that this is a fire of such magnitude. Where do you start? The flames are, I would have thought, probably 400 to 500 yards wide, the area that's ablaze. No further explosions. We heard 3 distinct explosions following on from the first one after 6 o'clock. But at the moment, I think that all the emergency services seem to be doing is cordoning off the area around this depot, which is still fiercely alight.
Jeff, we're just looking at our first video images reaching us. I'm going to get confirmation of exactly who this came from in a moment, so they're duly credited for that. But we can see the size of the flames there. I'm slightly concerned about a couple of text messages we've got in the past 20 minutes or so. One person says that my husband works at an oil depot. It's his day off, but we have to remember that there are people that work through the day and night there working that particular depot. So we have to think of their condition at the moment and whether anyone is caught up in this, because of course it's the kind of industry that does work around the clock.
Well, naturally, I mean, an oil depot would require 24-hour 7 manning. There would have been people at the site. The police and emergency services, of course, want to track everyone down, locate them, make sure they're okay. I stress, no word yet, but it's early days, of course, less than an hour perhaps since this incident began. No word yet of any casualties. I've spoken to one official from this oil depot who said he had spoken on the telephone to one of his duty watchmen who'd been at there at the time of the incident. He was unhurt, and he'd heard no other reports of casualties. But clearly, in an incident of this magnitude, that becomes the priority to account for those probably only small numbers, but there would have been people on duty at the depot. As you say, we're getting texts and emails to that effect. So the priority is to locate and account for all those who would have been in the vicinity, and secondly, of course, then to deal with the fire and bring it in some sense under control. But it's hard to, given the density of the smoke, the fierceness of the flames that I'm looking at now, and the duration. I mean, it's been burning since just after 6 o'clock, and no sign of abating now. But the priority then is to bring that under control. The only perhaps optimistic element in all this is that oil depots tend not to be built anywhere near housing or built-up areas. Although it's close to the town of Hemel Hempstead, and I'm at an industrial estate, Breakspear Park, which is only about 500 metres from the depot, there is not much in the way of housing around here, and so in the early hours of a Sunday morning, we wouldn't expect there to be much in the way of risk to people living nearby. But we're still awaiting confirmation of any casualties, and that, of course, is what the emergency services are concentrating on right now.
Jeff, what's the suggestion as regards to structural damage? We've heard reports of the Ramada Hotel being evacuated, but I've had a number of text messages suggesting as well that even buildings may be down in the area. I don't think we're talking residential buildings. You're obviously closer to the area. You can inform us on that. But presumably there's a lot of industrial buildings that maybe aren't built to the same strength as residential areas.
Yeah, let me paint you the picture. What you have here is a light industrial trading estate, very typical of the sort of establishment you see by the side of any major motorway anywhere in the country. So office blocks, storage facilities, a couple of hotels, you're right, the Ramada and the Holiday Inn, which we're hearing have been evacuated. Nothing in the way of housing. There are housing estates, of course, on the edge of Hemel Hempstead, but nothing that I'm aware of or can see, certainly from my vantage point here, very close to the burning depot, which, as I speak, by the way, I should say another huge tongue of flame is leaping up into the sky. And I've seen nothing like this since the burning oil wells of Kuwait in the aftermath of the First Gulf War. It really is a spectacularly fearsome sight on the dawn skyline here in Hertfordshire. But just to continue describing the area, light industrial estate, developed over the last 10 or 20 years, a lot of depots, storage depots, because of its proximity to the motorway, office blocks and a couple of hotels, but you would hope, fingers crossed, that there wouldn't have been too many people on duty here at the time of a Sunday morning when this explosion occurred. As to structural damage, well, I've just driven about 8 miles from my home in St Albans, from where we could clearly hear and see this. I saw no evidence of windows broken, roof tiles, anything which would indicate that a blast wave had come in that direction, so to the west of the explosion. But that doesn't mean, of course, that there won't have been damage elsewhere, because it was a mighty big blast. We heard it clearly. It woke us from our beds, and it is still continuing to throw flames and smoke high into the sky.
OK, Jeff, for now, thank you very much indeed. To a slight concern, nothing from the emergency services at this particular stage, so maybe you're able to get some word from those officers attending the scene at the moment. In the meantime, Sharon Flynn has just texted in. She says the explosion, which she believes she's about 2 miles away from the incident, was just so big, everything came off her walls inside her house. Very scary indeed. A number of you extremely frightened, not what you expect at this time on a Sunday morning, of course. Many people use that as an opportunity for a lie-in. From the indication we've got here, hardly anyone in the area now is asleep. Everyone has been woken up by the incident as far as the Kent coast this morning.
Yes, hundreds, if not thousands of emails coming in from you, our viewers at home, particularly those who have witnessed what happened this morning. Resulting damage, many of you writing in about. Indeed, one person wrote in and said that the front of their house had been blown off. People, first of all, thinking that it was anything from a plane crash to an earthquake. Let's talk now to Graham North, who's in Leverstock, which is right by the Buncefield fuel terminal. Graham, tell us what you're witnessing this morning.
Well, we were woken, as we say in the news, at about 6:05 by this horrendous explosion. The whole house shook. Windows rattled, the loft hatch blew in, things fell off the walls, garage door was blown open, and of course all the alarms went off, and you're sort of fast asleep, and it's a bit of a shock to the system first thing on a Sunday morning. But I looked out, and we can clearly see from the front of our house, where I would say south of the Buncefield depot, the blast wave took out tiles in the bathroom, blew bath panels off, and there's quite a bit of damage on various neighbours' houses with doors, and one neighbour just across the road had his soffit boards blown out. The flames, for the first bang, you can see it's exactly like your reporter said. It's
work because they've been in.
We're watching from the Leverstock Green Football Club, and it's an eerie sight. You've got the Ramada Hotel and Breakspear Park buildings illuminated and against the backdrop of the flames. It really is quite awesome.
Well, we also know, Graham, that the Ramada Hotel is now in the process of being evacuated this morning. Can you see that happening at all?
No. There's so many emergency services down there, and people are driving down to have a look, so we thought it's best to keep out of the vicinity.
What's the feeling amongst the people that you're with this morning? I'm looking at pictures now, and it certainly looks like an incredibly frightening sight.
It really is. It really is quite frightening. We've all congregated outside the houses in dressing gowns and shoes and things like that, and it's quite a a feeling of camaraderie, if you like. Checking on the elderly to make sure they're all right and to make sure everybody's okay.
Graham, it's great to speak to you this morning. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Let's get another perspective on this now. Sharon Charles also witnessed this event this morning. Was woken by the loud explosion. Sharon, a very good morning to you.
Hello.
We understand that almost an hour on now from the initial explosion, there are still flames in the area. What can you see?
Well, I live about a mile away from the Buncefield, and it was about 6. I thought it was later than that, but it's about 6 o'clock. I went into my kitchen. I live in flats in Woodall Farm, right on the edge, and there was this massive explosion. And I bent down to do the dishwasher. I stood up, and there was just this massive orange ball in the sky. I ran to the phone. I rang the emergency services. I think I must have been one of the first.
Did you manage to get through?
Yes, I got through straight away.
Were they aware of it?
No, they weren't. Because when I rang, they said, "What do you want?" I said, "I'm not sure. I want everyone, I think." And they took my number. There weren't any sirens. My loft hatch has been blown open. All my CD racks are blown off the wall. So I quickly jumped in my car with my son, and we drove up there. And there was just like half a dozen people had come out of the flats where I live. And we drove round to the industrial estate. There weren't any sirens at first.
Does
Then
that
we heard the
surprise you that,
sirens coming.
there were no emergency services on the scene that quickly?
Straight away, no. And we drove round, and the buildings, warehouses are all blown out. All the windows in the offices. There's the Alcon building, Avica. The whole side is just blown completely away. All the windows are blown out. Not blown where they're smashed. The force of it have just blown the windows open. Then we drove around, and we could actually feel the heat of the flames. It's quite. And then there was Then there was emergency services on the scene. And then people just seemed to come from everywhere when we were trying to come back. They cordoned it off, but when we got up to Buncefield Depot, near Buncefield Depot, there wasn't any police there. It was just two guys, which obviously
Just
come
one
from the
thing,
depot.
I'm just getting a message from someone called Hugh. He's on the Woodhall Farm estate. I presume that is very close to where you're reporting from right at this moment. Now, he is very concerned about cottages on the lanes that lead up to this depot.
Yeah, when we there was it must have been a plainclothes policeman stopped us and asked if there were any houses up this lane. We'd gone up Buncefield Lane, and there was one bungalow up there.
Right.
And he went up there to evacuate them. I mean, there are a few older houses dotted around within the industrial estate, up the lanes and things. But
And just in the past moment, I've been getting text messages of real concern about the Travellers site. Do you know where that's located?
yeah, we went past the Travellers site. That's
And that
not
was
far
okay?
from the depot, but it hasn't been. It hasn't been affected. I didn't see any damage there.
That's good news.
It's quite. When we were driving around, there was some more explosions, and it was quite frightening. I just wanted to get home. And the policeman who had stopped us, I assume he was a policeman, he had a walkie-talkie. He said, "Just go home. Just go home," because I said, I wanted to see what it was. But I mean, it was frightening. I mean, you can see it from my flat now, and it just lights up the sky. I mean, when we turn the lights off, it just lights the whole flat up. At first, I thought it was a block of flats opposite me, a gas explosion or something. But, I mean, it's horrendous. It really is. And there's just hundreds of people on the street now. I mean, when I first went out, there was only 2 or 3 people out on the street. And then driving around there, people were just coming from everywhere.
We're getting loads of images in from our viewers, actually. We're going to get this one on the screen. Sharon, thank you for your update there. This is showing the scene just as daylight is starting to come through at the moment. And we can see the huge plume of smoke. Our team are going to get that up for you in just a moment or so. But it certainly shows the extent of what possibly could be the damage in the area caused by these series of explosions. But thank you all for your email and text messages. news@sky.com, a video as well as you're seeing. And text message us on 84501.
Let's get straight over now to our reporter Enda Brady, who's at the scene for us this morning. Enda, it's almost an hour and a quarter since the first explosion. What's happening there now?
Incredible scenes really here in Hemel Hempstead. There's a bright burning amber glow on the horizon, a huge column of black billowing smoke stretching hundreds and hundreds of feet up into the air. Very acrid smell on the way driving into Hemel Hempstead. People here abandoning their cars on the side road. An awful lot of police activity, fire crews, emergency services as I speak. People just stopping their cars on the side of the road here to look. They've all been awake for an hour and a quarter because this woke everyone up in the area at 6 a.m. Some reports this was heard as far away as Towcester in Northamptonshire, towns like Cambridge as well, and even Leatherhead in Surrey. Just an incredible situation here. Right now, an awful lot of people very, very confused about what is going on here. Some speculation about a gas mains perhaps being to blame, but people just walking towards us, drawn by the flames almost, just wanting to find out more.
And we're just looking at images that our viewers have been sending in this morning, and it certainly looks like it's over quite a significant area, and those flames are just absolutely enormous. How close are the emergency services able to get to it?
Well, I'm probably about half a mile away from the actual centre of what's going on, and crews are getting very, very close. They're being let through the cordons, but the general public and press being kept well back. Diversions in place. The M1 motorway is closed between junctions 6 and 9, and just so much confusion here in Hemel Hempstead. People literally abandoning their cars on the side of the road to get out and speak to neighbours and talk to friends and reassure each other. A lot of people are telling me they have damage to their property, cracked windows and what have you, and virtually everyone here woken up by the incredible explosion at 6 a.m.
Witnesses also telling us that there's been significant structural damage as well to the area and to their houses. Indeed, one person writing in saying that he or she, in fact, was anonymous text saying that buildings have come down. Have you seen anything like that, Enda?
I haven't seen anything firsthand, but I've spoken to people who've had, and they've told me there is an awful lot of damage to warehouses in this area. It is a very industrial area, and a couple of people I've spoken to, they were there straight away as soon as the explosion happened, and they said that yes, an awful lot of damage to warehouses and industrial properties in that vicinity. And as far as residential property is concerned, it would appear most people have got away with just blown out windows and cracks.
As you were saying, and there's some speculation about what exactly caused the series of explosions, but no word yet officially.
No official word, but I can tell you people here on the ground in Hemel Hempstead are saying that there is some sort of a gas main fault that is to blame. That is just pure speculation, but that is what people in Hemel Hempstead are saying. Such an incredible sight. As I speak, the smoke billowing higher and higher still, and flames licking up into the morning sky.
Are the explosions continuing?
No, haven't heard any explosions whatsoever. People have been telling me there were between 2 and 3 explosions quite closely together shortly after 6 a.m, but none since I've been here. Just the flames continuing to lick up into the sky, and smoke now billowing several hundred feet up into the air. Quite a sight driving into Hemel Hempstead, just a bizarre sight. You know, this massive, colossal column of thick, black, acrid smoke just covering the town, as it were.
Are you able to gauge for us, and the feeling amongst locals there, just looking at these pictures, just looks an incredibly eerie sight?
People are very, very shocked. Many walking around in their bedclothes, just falling out of their properties and just throwing on whatever clothes they can to get down here, and naturally drawn almost by the smoke and flames to just find out precisely what is going on. The explosion certainly woke up the entire town at 6 a.m, and people are just walking around now in a state of confusion. An awful lot of police activity, fire crews heading towards the scene. You do get the impression this is going to be a major incident that will last for a very long time.
And people also writing in saying that they thought it could have been one of a number of things. Some saying that they thought it was a plane crash. Indeed, our reporter Jeff Mead saying earlier that he heard a rumbling coming from above before the explosion. Other people saying that they thought it was an earthquake even.
Well, there is some speculation. A couple of people have said that they did hear something in the air beforehand, but the consensus amongst people on the ground here is that a gas leak is to blame. That's pure speculation, but that is just what the people are saying here on the ground. Nobody knows for sure. The police and the fire crews and all the authorities far more busy at the scene. I'm sure we will hear in due course, but just a very bizarre situation here.
Enda Brady, for now, many thanks indeed.
Lots of video reaching us. You're seeing some of the video supplied by our viewers that attended the scene very early on, shortly after 6:05 this morning. We'll get through as much of those pieces of video that we can in the coming hours here on Sky News Sunrise. Also, want to tell you about some of the thoughts that are coming in on email. A lot of people are saying that they've heard things overhead before the explosion, and also just some words that have summed up exactly what they felt as soon as they were shaken by these explosions. July the 7th, invasion. That's just some of the words describing this incident this morning. Let's talk to Alan Reid. Alan, how would you sum it up?
It's amazing. It's like you've got a massive plume of smoke going up into the sky. You've got the police have just cornered off the whole, like a mile, half a mile radius. They've just told everyone to move on. Because there was just another plume, like explosion-y type thing just went off. And there's hazardous fire engines going up towards the place as well.
Now, did this explosion wake you up, or were you already awake?
I was fast asleep, mate. I've just been out on the lash, out clubbing for the night, and then went out into the street, and I think everyone down the street was coming out to see what had gone on.
And we're more than an hour and a quarter after that first explosion. What's the scene now?
Well, everyone's being moved off the streets. There was basically down towards one of the roads, heading towards it. There was loads of people gathered around there, and they've all just been moved on by the police. So it's about a half a mile radius they've cornered off now.
How well do you know the area, Alan?
Not too well, but I've only lived over here for a year, you know. So, but it's like there's a building called the Blue Box Storage Company. All their windows have been shattered. A big new warehouse that's been built has had loads of panels have been blown off, and you can see right through it. So it's quite a sight, to be honest.
Have you experienced anything like this before?
Never, man. It's crazy. You know, it's strange. It's happening around this area. You know, it's been expected. It was sort of expected anyway because of the oil refinery and that.
Are you frightened?
Not really. Tired now. I'm going back to bed, mate. It's all the same though over there, isn't it? The smoke, I'd say, is covering Hemel practically.
I like that.
Alan, thank you very much for that update. We'll let you walk back home.
Just bring up to date was writing into us this morning. Most of you telling us what you witnessed from about 6:05 this morning when the first explosion took place. But we've had a first question in from somebody asking what has happened to the travellers nearby. There is a travellers camp in the vicinity of the Buncefield fuel terminal, and we can tell you that according to a witness that we were speaking to about 20 minutes ago.
Yes, Sharon Charles.
Yes, Sharon Charles indeed was saying that she had been past the travellers camp and it seemed to be unscathed, so that might be a bit of good news this morning for you. In the meantime, let's talk to Chris Wilmerson, another witness. Chris, tell us what you experienced this morning and indeed what's happened now.
Okay, well, we woke up this morning about 6 o'clock to a massive explosion. I mean, it literally bowed the windows in, and my fiancée just jumped out of bed, you know, shouting. We really wanted to go and have a look by the window, but I kind of had to stop her just in case, because they shook so violently. I thought the windows actually were going to come in if there was a second sort of boom, and we didn't really know what had happened.
What was your initial reaction to it? What did you think had happened? Because we've had people writing in all day saying that they thought it could be, you know, one of a number of things, anything from a plane crash to an intruder to an earthquake.
First of all, we thought it was, there's a petrol station so close to sort of the oil depot site. I mean, people around the area, it's you know, everyone knows it. That was the first sort of thing I thought that had gone up, because, I mean, there was no smoke. As soon as we went to look out the window, there was no smoke. It was just the entire sky was bright yellow engulfed with flames. So the initial thought that it was at the petrol station that had gone up.
And when you look out the window now, what can you see?
It hasn't changed since. I mean, it's got a bit more smoky. I'll just go into my kitchen now, and I've got a direct line of sight straight to it, and it's nothing's changed. It's just a bit more smoke. The fire itself is absolutely huge. Never seen anything like it at all.
Are you worried at all?
Not too much. No, we were when we first sort of got up, because you know there was extra explosions, and the first one that went off was so big. The place is full of oil tankers and petrol tankers, all sorts of things. I mean, there's massive oil storage there. So it's got so much fuel that it could do so much damage. But yeah, we were a bit frightened as soon as it went off. We were absolutely terrified, really.
We've been getting some mixed reports as to exactly how many explosions there were. Our reporter Enda Brady telling us in the last few minutes that the explosions have now stopped. How many did you hear?
Well, we heard, in total we've heard 3. One was very, very big. That was the one that woke us up. And then sort of with the migration of people, we all went down. There's a roundabout that we all went to stand on. Literally, it's very, very close. And we had another 2 then, and they were quite big, nowhere near the first one. I mean, I imagine if people are out on the street on the first one, it was that big, it could have knocked them over, to be honest. And how the caravans at the caravan site haven't flattened from it, I don't know.
Are you able to tell us a little more, Chris, about the area surrounding the Buncefield fuel depot, exactly how residential it would be, perhaps?
Okay, where the actual depot is, it's right in the heart of the industrial estate, so there's not many houses or residential areas nearby. But with the force of the blast, there are, I mean, I'm quite close myself, our house is quite close. But there are houses that are closer that would have sustained quite a bit of damage, being the force of the blast this morning.
Chris Wilmerson, very much appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just tell you how the news agencies are reporting this so far. They're getting very sketchy details. We're relying mainly on our witnesses that have been calling us in their hundreds here at Sky News. As I say, a very confused picture. AP Newswire suggesting there was an explosion just before 6 o'clock. Now this actually ties in very nicely with the witness reports that we're getting across the region. One from Norwich saying at about 12 minutes past 6. Now a lot of people are suggesting that it would take that long for the sound to travel, a bit like thunder and lightning. There's a delay between the actual light and the sound, so that ties in with the first loud explosion that was heard near Hemel Hempstead. Let's just talk to Richard Smith, who's in the area. Richard, what did you see or hear?
Well, basically, I just finished work. I work at Gist, which is just around the corner. They sort out the food with Marks and Spencer's. Anyway, as I must have been about 100 to 150 metres away from the factory. I did a right turn, and I could smell a strong smell of petrol, and it was really thick fog as well. And I carried on driving, and all of a sudden, a massive bang. The sky just lit up, and I looked into my...
Richard, we're just going to hold you there. We'll come right back to you, but our reporter Jeff Mead is now at the Ramada Hotel, which was evacuated a short time ago. Jeff, what's happening there?
I'm actually at the Holiday Inn close to the Ramada. It's being evacuated. Also, guests out here just in their clothes with blankets over them to keep the chill out. Let's try and have a word with 1 or 2 of them who've been evacuated. Excuse me, madam, from Sky News. Can I have a quick word with you? You've just been evacuated, yeah? Tell us. Let me hand you the phone. Just have a quick word with Sky News, if you would. There you go. Yeah, say hello. Give them your name.
Hello.
Yes, hi. I wonder if you can tell us exactly what you witnessed and what you felt being so close to the explosion.
Right, well, we were in our room, my husband and I, and it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and we had this huge explosion. We were in the Holiday Inn in Hemel Hempstead, and the whole room just shook. And so we just got out and looked out the window, and there was a big ball of flames. And the hotel was evacuated, so we came outside, and there was fire burning. We didn't know what was going on at first. I thought it was the Shell petrol station across the road that had exploded, but it's just intense, and it's still burning right now, and thick black smoke in the sky. So I don't know. I mean, some people were saying it was a plane crash, and some people said it was the oil tank. So I don't really know.
And did you need to be told to be evacuated, or was it pretty obvious that you had to get out?
It was very obvious that we had to get out because the alarms in the hotel were going, so we just had to get out.
Could you use the lift? Were you?
No. The emergency exit's down the stairs and onto the car park.
And was it calm? Were people in control?
Yeah, it was relatively calm. People were not screaming. I mean, there were children everywhere, and the hotel was quite helpful. At first we didn't see any staff from the hotel, but then they came out with blankets and towels and stuff for people, because we came out without our jackets. So
So where are you heading to now?
Well, we're from London, and we have I don't know which way to go, because I know the M1 been shut. So.
And presumably you've still got all your things in your room.
No, we've had to collect all our stuff from the room, and we were due to check out this morning anyway. I mean, I can still see the flames burning, so, but we have to leave this morning, so we're going home.
Well, thank you very much for taking us through your side of the story. If you're able to put the phone back to our reporter Jeff Mead. Jeff, I don't know if you can hear us, but it seems a relatively calm scene there.
Hi there.
It's a relatively calm scene, I understand, Jeff, considering what's happened.
It is, yes. I mean, you were talking to Enya there, and while you were chatting to her, I was talking to her family. They were actually here on, would you believe, a religious retreat. They'd come away for a quiet, reflective weekend. Of course, couldn't have expected anything as disruptive as this. But everybody here is taking it very well. The hotel, the Holiday Inn, which is only within a quarter of a mile of the site of the explosion, relatively undamaged, and all the guests, I'm told, by the management here have been safely evacuated. The police have arranged transport. They're being bussed away to other hotels nearby which can accommodate them. Let me just briefly, if we have time, describe the scene for you, though, here at Hemel Hempstead, at the Buncefield fuel depot, major fuel depot, one of Britain's biggest, which is on fire. I'm just being advised by the police. To move away because of the ongoing danger of secondary explosions. But let me just pick up what I was saying. Overhead there is a huge plume of black smoke. I mean, it's apocalyptic in a way. It's filling the bright dawn sky, absolute black cloud overhead. Across the road from where I'm standing, where I've just been moved from by the police, and I'm being moved further back. Obviously, they're concerned about the safety of all of us in this area. Quite a crowd gathering now, as you'd imagine, not only the media, but the sightseers who are attracted to this kind of emergency. There's a BP filling station, and it is completely deserted. The front of it is wrecked. The glass in the shop area is smashed. Alarms ringing. It really does look a scene of utter devastation. Beyond that, there is a large modern office block. That's the headquarters of the branch of the company BP, which operate much of this depot at Buncefield. That too, a lot of structural damage, windows broken, light fittings hanging out of the building. So that has taken the brunt of the shockwave from this blast. So a lot of localized damage. At the moment, and of course it is very, very early yet, it's not much more than an hour since this explosion, we have no word of casualties. A lot of ambulances here, as you'd expect, but so far all those paramedics that I've spoken to say they have not treated any casualties, nor have they yet had any word of injuries. What we do know, because I've spoken to one of the managers from the Buncefield depot, is of course there would have been people on duty at the time of this blast. We don't know numbers. We don't know yet if they're all safely accounted for. The person that I chatted to a short while ago, he had spoken to his duty manager. His team were fine. They had all, amazingly, when you look at the fire still blazing fiercely, still lighting the horizon, his team had escaped unhurt. But we're still waiting confirmation of number and severity of any casualties from this explosion.
Jeff, just very briefly, we're just hearing word from Luton Airport that the airport is operating normally, which would suggest, and I think we can quite possibly definitely rule this out now, that there was no aircraft involved, because had that been the case, I would imagine all aircraft would be grounded.
I think that's a fair assumption, absolutely. Those of us, me included, and I was woken by this at 6:05. Immediately the thought was, a plane has come down, because there was this roaring sound overhead which seemed to precede the explosion. Now, it may have been a trick of the distance or the acoustics. I mean, what we're hearing here is that it was simply an explosion. There was nothing before that which would suggest it was caused spontaneously or otherwise at the Buncefield depot. So yes, fortunately, I think we can dismiss those early reports, mine among them, in which the sound was very, suggested that there might have been an aircraft which had caused this. We don't know the cause, of course. That will be many hours, maybe many days before that is established. No indication yet, but certainly a devastating explosion which appears to have destroyed one of Britain's biggest fuel dumps.
Jeff, for now, thank you. Just like to thank Sue Toady, Mark Austin, who's 14-year-old, amongst the contributors to our video that you're seeing on the screen here. Thank you for getting in touch with us. We're still receiving video, images and photographs, and we'll be displaying those throughout the morning.
And of course, those texts from you have not stopped coming in since about 5 or 10 past 6 this morning. News@sky.com, as Steve was telling us. Let's return now to Richard Smith, who we were talking to earlier. Richard, sorry to have to interrupt you before. You were telling us exactly what you'd experienced this morning.
Yeah, like I was saying, I was literally about 100 metres away from the factory that exploded, and I could smell a strong smell of petrol, and all of a sudden the sky just lit up. There was a huge bang, and I looked into my rearview mirror, and there was a building that had just literally opened up like a doll's house, and I was actually closer to the factory than the building, and I drove on, got out of my car just to check that my car was all right, because I couldn't understand how I'd got away how I did, because all the buildings around me have been completely devastated. I mean, I stopped there's an Alcon building just behind the factory, and I stopped just in front of that, and there's windows that are broken, but the thing that worries me though is that there's a factory that looks after McDonald's. They've got a lot of McDonald's trucks, and there was about 10 or 15 people walking out of there just as I'd gone past, and they were actually closer to the factory than I was. So I'm just, hoping everyone's okay there.
Yeah, there are some residential areas around the Buncefield fuel depot as well, aren't there, Richard? We're just getting an email saying that there's a place called the Hunter's Oak Estate, which is nearer than any other housing. Do you know anything about that area?
I don't know anything about that area, no. I was in the industrial estate, and that's literally I was literally just behind the factory. And there were people on walking before the explosion.
Are you able to see at all what the emergency services might be doing, whether indeed they're able to get close enough to achieve anything?
No, I've actually left the scene now, because I just finished work. When the explosion happened, I got out of my car. I tried to call the 999, but I couldn't get through. And when I saw all the black smoke, I thought it better be a good idea to get out of here, because I was thinking that there'd be some more explosions. So I was only around for the first one. I didn't hear anything else, you see.
So if your first instinct, Richard, was to get away, do you think that that's what other people would also be doing? I mean, we certainly hope that they're not rushing towards it.
Well, no, when I stopped, there was 2 security guards that were looking a bit shocked. They were on their phones as well, and they were staying in the area. But because, it just happened, I'm looking in the sky, and the sky is full of fire, and I could see the black smoke, so you never know what it could be, so I just thought I'd better get out of the area.
We've been hearing from some people also in the vicinity that they could smell the burning oil coming from the scene, and that's something that you also attested to just before.
Yeah, the petrol, it was such a strong smell of petrol, I thought it was my car.
Richard, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Receiving thousands and thousands of your emails and text messages. People still very concerned as to what's happening in the area. A lot of people asking whether this smoke is toxic, whether it's dangerous, whether they should be moving away from it. They're not getting any information through from the police in the area at the moment. As soon as we've got details, we'll of course broadcast that to you. In the meantime, let's hear from someone that's also in the area, Paul Connew. Paul, very good morning to you. Start off please telling us where you are and what you saw.
Well, I was originally staying with friends in Hertfordshire, about 6 miles away, and when the blast went off, I'm a former war correspondent and that's a newspaper editor, and I thought, Jesus, this is Beirut again, or Northern Ireland, because my first impression was either a bomb or a plane crash. Jumped into my car with my son, who's a media student, and the camera equipment, and shot over there. I mean, you could follow the flames and smoke trail even from 6 miles away to, in fact, get here pretty quickly and know exactly where it was. When we arrived, we encountered rather shocked security guards, a guy called Owen Morell, South African who was on duty in 2 buildings away, and he was shaken up, covered in glass, in fact, but miraculously no cuts. And his phone had been knocked out. He borrowed mine to phone his office to let them know he was okay, in fact, but he said that there was only a brick building separated him from the actual refinery, or the oil depot rather, and if it hadn't been for that, he said he thought he'd have been killed. But amazingly, most of his colleagues who were even closer, he thought, were coming out too, all of them pretty shaken up, but as far as one could tell, there wasn't any immediate signs of casualties.
Paul, let's make this quite clear. You spoke to Owen Marshall, who's Owen Morell, who's a security man at a place 2 buildings away, who felt very lucky to escape unharmed, or at least seriously unharmed.
Oh, yeah, indeed, yeah. He was shaking, but in fact...
Does that suggest, in your opinion, anyone closer to the incident than Owen that could be in real risk?
Well, no, because he managed to find a colleague who's even closer, in fact, who was okay. This is the extraordinary thing. I mean, obviously it's early days yet, and hopefully no one has been killed or injured, but he was astonished, as I was, when these guys who had been pretty close actually came out, and although they were shaken, some had grass over them, none of them were actually cut or bleeding. They were very shocked, though.
And how close do you believe Owen was to this incident? Would we a couple of hundred yards?
He was probably about sort of 60 to, he said about 100 to 150 metres away.
Sounds very, very lucky indeed. What's the scene right now, Paul?
The scene right now, I'm just driving away now because my son's got a lot of footage he wants to get out. But in fact, it was, the flames were going up. They were spreading. It was looking as if it was starting to catch some of the woodland, because there's a sort of small wood very close to the depot, and some of the flames were spreading across there. And I think obviously that's going to be an issue for the fire brigade. But it's surging. It's a lot of smoke, flames going up. But sometimes surging more than others. But what's interesting is one of the security guards, who didn't want to be named, but he did actually say that he had a sense of the smell of gas shortly before he came on duty. Now, whether that is in any way significant, who knows? But additionally, there were reports of planes, as you know, and one guy claimed, not a security guard, but one resident claimed that he saw a plane going over in flames. So I think that is probably sort of the sort of hysteria you get with these
Paul,
things.
obviously hundreds of people with varying different stories. Thank you very much for that, and we'll let you and your son get back to your house to send in the video. Remember, if you've got video footage or pictures, news@sky.com is the email address.
Let's talk now to Gary Sanderson, who's an ambulanceman. Gary, we are getting unconfirmed reports, or have done in the last minute or so, of 8 people dead. Are you able to verify that for us?
No, I can't confirm that at this stage. As I say, I'm going to be evacuated from the scene very, very shortly, because there's been several explosions since. Well, we're desperately trying to find out, the numbers of casualties, but as soon as I have an update, I'll let you know later. But at the minute, it's just like a massive ball of fire and a plume of smoke. It's, say, several explosions still going off.
How close have you been able to get to the scene?
As close as we're allowed. Obviously, safety comes first, but we've just evacuated a hotel in Hemel Hempstead, the Holiday Inn, 120 people to a standby place where we can keep them safe and warm, but so it's too dangerous to stay where we are.
We haven't heard anything yet here at Sky News from the police, and indeed our witnesses that we've been talking to throughout the morning said that they haven't heard anything official. What about you? Have you been speaking to police at all?
Yeah, we're working very closely together, police, fire, ambulance and utility services. We've got contingency plans in place now in preparedness for these such events, and as I say, it's too early at the moment just to talk about numbers of casualties, because it's hectic at the moment.
What are the contingency plans that you have in place?
Obviously, they are all involve about major incident planning. The initial response to the scene, the dealing with the scene, the aftermath. So everybody's working closely together. And as I'm speaking, it looks like there's going to be another explosion, so I'll have to go. I'm very sorry.
Gary, of course, we absolutely understand your safety is of course, the most important thing here. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. Gary Sanderson there, an ambulanceman, he has to move on from the area because he thinks that another explosion at the Buncefield fuel depot may take place any second now. So far, we've heard reports of 3 explosions, the first one taking place at about 6:05 this morning. However, some of you have been writing in saying that you've heard 4, and some of you say that you've heard even more than that. Our reporter who we were speaking to earlier, Enda Brady, who's at the scene, was telling us that as far as he knows, the explosions have now stopped. But you heard Gary Sanderson there, ambulanceman, telling us of his concerns for a follow-up explosion anytime soon at that oil depot, which supplies fuel to Heathrow and I understand also to Luton Airport, both of those airports in the vicinity of Hemel Hempstead, which is where these explosions have taken place this morning. At the moment, still no confirmation about exactly what caused the blasts, so there has been some speculation that it was a gas connection that might have been to blame for what's happened so far. Unconfirmed reports of deaths. We were saying before 8 people dead, but Gary Sanderson, they're not able to verify that for us at the moment.
We do know that Hertfordshire Fire Brigade have sent at least 12 crews to the scene. No comment from Hertfordshire Police at this stage. Let's get an indication of how people might react to this kind of incident now. Joining us on the line is Tony Moore, who's from the Institute of Civil Defence Disaster Studies. Tony, a very good morning to you. Well, where do you start?
Well, there'll be 2 plans for this site. The on-site plan, which won't come into play on this occasion. That's when they get a small incident on the site. And there'll be an off-site plan, which obviously will come into play here, I think, as Gary was saying earlier on. They will be well rehearsed, the plans. I think to some extent they're fortunate, if one can use the word fortunate in this context, that it's a Sunday morning. So presumably they won't have huge difficulty in setting up some kind of cordon around the site, other perhaps lack of numbers, because in the same way as there's not going to be much traffic about, there probably won't be many police officers about.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's the other factor, isn't it? Being so early on a Sunday morning, do you have the fire crews, the police crews, the ambulance crews standing by to deal with this kind of incident?
Well, the fire crews will be there, and there will be arrangements whereby Hertfordshire, I think this is in, isn't it, where Hertfordshire can loan fire engines and crews from other fire brigades from adjoining counties.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because you would imagine that the crews in the London region would be trained for something like this more than maybe crews from Hertfordshire.
Well, possibly, but of course, I mean, a lot of the big depots like this are not in London, and I'm sure that Hertfordshire will have trained for this kind of incident. The police, the fire service, and the ambulance service, and the county emergency planning officers, of course, who are responsible for finding temporary accommodation for anybody who's evacuated.
Tony, we're just hearing Hertfordshire Police have just released a statement saying they believe at this stage there's nothing sinister involved in this incident, and they believe it was purely just an accident, which is of course good news, but nevertheless a huge incident developing in the Hertfordshire region.
Absolutely. I mean, I think probably if it had been during the week, it could have been far more serious, because there are likely to have been far more people about in the vicinity of the scene. So probably a good job it's Sunday morning.
A lot of people are emailing and texting us. They're concerned that the police aren't guiding them in what they should be doing. Obviously, there's a huge plume of smoke now over the area. They don't know whether that's harmful to them or not. How do the police at this particular stage of an incident get the message out to people?
Well, very difficult, so soon after the incident. I think one has to realise that with so few police officers on a Sunday morning, it will take them some time to get organised. And I'm not sure quite when this actually happened, but normally they talk about the golden hour, and it'll be an hour after the incident before things begin to become clear to the emergency services themselves.
Well, we're approaching 2 hours now. Reports initially suggested it was shortly before 6, depending on where you're living in the southeast region.
Yeah.
Some people in Norwich heard sounds at around about 12 minutes past 6. So we've gone at least an hour and a half into this incident now, Tony.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably at this time of the morning, what the police will be suffering most from is lack of numbers. See, none of the special groups will be on duty on a Sunday morning. Or anything like that, so they won't be about in numbers. If this had happened sort of at 12 midnight last night, then one would have expected a lot of police to be around. But this is one of the problems, of course. There will be lack of numbers at this time of the day.
Tony Moore, thank you for your comments this morning.
Let's talk now to Mary Theodorou. She's on the line for us this morning. Mary, tell us where you are and what you've experienced.
Good morning. Currently, I'm at our rear bedroom window and I can see very clearly the vast black plume of smoke and the extreme flames, which are so going high up into the sky. The other thing that we're noticing now is the intense smell that's coming from this vast accident fire that's been caused at the depot. We were initially woken so suddenly and quite shockingly by a real sudden shudder. It really felt as though our house was falling down. We didn't know what had happened. My husband's an off-duty police officer. He quickly got dressed and ran down because initially he thought it was an aeroplane crash, as we've got London Heathrow and London Luton so close to us. The other thing that he thought of was there's also a Calagas depot just down the road, because we're at the foot of the Cherry Trees Road, which is quite a vast road. On one side there's a residential area, and then the other side it's a vast industrial area, but was unable to sort of get any further. So it's really quite a frightening scene from our window.
Mary, this took place almost 2 hours ago now at 6:05 this morning. In that time, have you noticed the flames change at all? I mean, have they subsided in any way?
It certainly doesn't seem so. As the dawn is coming upon us, the black plume of smoke is quite severe. The flames seem larger than ever. It doesn't seem to be subsiding at all. We can certainly hear in the background numerous emergency vehicles. But this morning at 6 o'clock, we tried calling 999. Our phone lines still seem to be down, so obviously that's caused some sort of effect. There's also a number of houses in our road that seem to have smashed windows, and some of the garage doors seem to be dented as well. So we're literally just about under half a mile away. Also, our neighbouring estate, Hunter's Oak, that's very, very close to the depot as well, so we're not quite sure what the impact is in that area as well. It's quite a nice modern estate.
You were saying just before, Mary, that your husband is a police officer. Has he been able to give any more information about exactly what might be going on, or speak to any of his colleagues?
Well, certainly he's not from the Hertfordshire area, but it's very difficult to actually get through into the Cherry Trees Road. There's numerous emergency vehicles. There seem to be buildings that are quite badly damaged, so the police are not allowing anyone to actually get through at all. So. But we'll certainly try and get some further information on that for you.
We were speaking to, thank you very much for that, Mary. Well, we were speaking earlier also to another witness who was telling us that he works near the Buncefield oil depot, and what he saw at the time of the explosion was a building right in front of him opening up like a doll's house. Have you seen any sort of any damage like that?
Well, certainly, as I said, there's a number of houses which are in the Cherry Trees area. Broken windows, broken glass, that type of thing, superficial damage, but we haven't seen anything extreme in terms of houses, and hope everyone's all right within them.
Have you been able to speak to any of your friends in the area at all to see how this might have affected them or what they'd experienced?
Certainly, as the blast awoke everyone, there was plenty of people within the streets in obviously their pyjamas, dressing gowns and so forth. But, you know, everyone's just sort of shaken up. We've been in the area for 5 years, and certainly nothing like this has happened before. And, you know, our initial reaction was, you know, an aircraft falling down because of the type of noise and the impact that it had. You know, thank God it wasn't, and thank God it seems to be an accident, as you're reporting, and hopefully everyone will come out okay.
How crowded do you think the area would have been at the time, Mary? We were hearing before that it is a good thing, if there can be a good thing out of all of this, that it didn't happen during the week and that this incident took place on a Sunday morning.
Well, certainly the immediate area to the vicinity of the depot does seem to be greatly industrial. There's a lot of blue chip company head offices, a lot of factories, a lot of warehouses, storage area. Now, obviously, height of the week, that's very busy indeed. It's a hub for many head offices. I'm hoping, perhaps on a Sunday morning, it wouldn't have been that populated. But certainly, we hope everyone comes off okay. But certainly looking at the flames now, the smoke is intense. The flames are very, very fierce indeed, and the smell really is starting to become quite immense.
All right, Mary, well, do take care of yourself. Certainly, many thanks indeed, Mary Theodore.
Thank you for your time.
Let's talk to Sky's Enda Brady now, who's very close to the scene. You're seeing live pictures from our Sky News camera. It must be, a mile and a half or so away from the site. That's about as close as you can get to it at the moment. You can see the size of the flame still burning more than, nearly 2 hours since the initial explosion, and the amount... describe the scene there.
Good morning. Well, just as you come to me, I'm being asked to move back now. Police officers all over this area. One officer said there are several hundred officers involved in this investigation. Flames still leaping high into the sky in front of me here. The column of smoke is growing larger and larger. If you were driving into St. Albans or Hemel Hempstead this morning, you would actually think that the smoke was cloud cover. It is totally covering the entire area. One officer told me that what we're seeing in the past half hour is off-duty police from the Metropolitan Force driving into London, pulling up and giving assistance to their colleagues here in Hertfordshire. Quite incredible scenes. Everyone is out now. People are just spilling out of their houses and homes in whatever clothes they are wearing and talking to neighbours, reassuring each other, and just trying to find out more information. We're being kept well back. It is pretty much a sterile area now. Police have the area very well cordoned off. Major traffic diversions in place. Parts of the M1 are now closed, and police simply have no more information to give us at this point.
And we're just watching these live pictures that your crew's supplying for us. Very reminiscent of a burning oil well in the Middle East. No surprise, really, that the flames continue to go hundreds of feet into the air because, of course, there is such a huge amount of fuel at this depot.
There is. Just speaking to people here from the area who have far greater local knowledge, and they are telling me that there are up to 30 different storage areas for oil on that base, and just such a major supply network for the entire southeast of the country, a big employer in this area as well. And flames, as I speak, licking up again now. The fire does seem to be spreading several warehouses in that area, many of which are badly damaged. The flames continuing to burn, the smoke billowing higher and higher. Quite an eerie atmosphere here now. The industrial estate is completely evacuated, just save for a couple of police officers just on the corner here in front of me. Fire crews closer to the scene, and police have done a very good job in getting people out and keeping members of the public back as well.
And thanks for that update. It's just before 8 o'clock here on Sky News Sunrise. You're watching live pictures of the scene near Hemel Hempstead, where a loud explosion shortly or just after 6 this morning was followed by a series of further explosions. There were enough to rock many of the buildings in the area and indeed be felt right across the region as far as the Kent coast.
Yes, that series of explosions taking place at about 6:05 this morning. For ambulance man about half an hour, 20 minutes ago, who was saying that he feared more explosions were to come. At the moment, we're hearing from Hertfordshire Police, who are saying that, as far as they're concerned, there's nothing about this incident to suggest that it was anything other than an accident in the vicinity of the Buncefield oil depot, where these explosions took place this morning, is Luton Airport. They say that they are operating normally. Still no word from the police this morning, so we're not sure at this stage exactly what it was that caused this blast, though we were hearing some speculation that it was something to do with a gas link.
first official confirmation coming through from Hertfordshire Police that they are treating this very much as an accident. They have confirmed that a series of explosions at that oil depot did occur shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. Thank you for your email messages, text messages, videos, photographs. You've sent so many thousands of them in. You've managed to overload our system. So just for the time being, we're just switching our email address to news.plan@bskyb.com. That's news.plan@bskyb.com, and we'll run through those email messages. There you are, news.plan@bskyb.com. You'll get your messages and pictures and videos through to us here at Sky Centre.
Let's just pick up now with our reporter Enda Brady, who is still at the scene for us at the Buncefield fuel terminal. And we know that there have been some injuries, no word on exact numbers there of any casualties, but we were getting some unconfirmed reports as well of 8 people who may have died because of these blasts. What are you able to tell us about that?
I can't confirm any of that. I have spoken to police officers here at the scene and they're refusing to give any more information. They say they simply don't know. A lot of the police we are speaking to are quite far away from the centre of the explosion. A lot of rumours, as you would imagine, in the area, people talking about fatalities and serious injuries, but I cannot confirm any of that whatsoever. What I can say is the police are now making the area more and more sterile. The last few members of the public who have managed to get vantage points on the industrial estate here are being asked to leave. They are being moved back as I speak, and we're seeing off-duty Metropolitan Police officers stopping their cars, just simply getting out, parking up and donning fluorescent police jackets and helping out their colleagues from Hertfordshire to bring the situation under control, to get people back and to get traffic diversions in place. As I speak, flames licking up into the sky again. We can just see more flames there and smoke billowing higher and higher, more emergency services arriving. A major incident here in Hemel Hempstead today.
And just confirming, in the past moment, Hertfordshire Police have said that reports that a plane was involved in the incident were untrue. So they are ruling that out of the equation at the moment. They're treating this as an accident. Of course, the investigation starts now.
And the reason that they were saying that, of course, was because residents in the area, and indeed our own reporter Jeff Mead saying first thing this morning that he was awoken by a loud rumbling in the sky, and many witnesses saying that they had exactly the same sensation, feeling a loud roaring in the sky. But Enda, the police saying that there was absolutely nothing to suggest, as far as they're concerned, that there was anything untoward about this incident, and some speculation, in fact, that it might have been something to do with the gas link.
Precisely. A couple of people did say early on that they heard a rumble shortly before the very first explosion.
And are you still there? I think we might have just lost you.
Yes, a couple of people had said they heard a rumble shortly before the very first explosion. Others were saying that no, it would be far more likely that a gas leak were at fault for this, but quite simply at this stage we don't know, but Hertfordshire Police certainly ruling out any airplane crash.
Any indication yet, Enda, of how many people would have been in the industrial area at the time?
Well, several local residents here have said to me that there are shift workers who work on this industrial estate over the weekend. We quite simply don't know how many people, but certainly local residents are adamant that some people were working in the vicinity at 6 a.m. this morning. And as I speak, more people being moved back down Maylands Avenue now, away from the centre of the explosion, and the flames just continuing to burn and burn, and more smoke billowing up into the sky right in front of us.
And apparently there have also been ambulances at the scene suggesting that there are indeed injured people. What do they have in the way of hospitals in that area?
Quite simply, from my vantage point, I can't say. Ambulances, yes, closer to the scene, but where we are here, just a major police force presence, but no fire crews, no ambulances there, much closer into the centre of the scene. But I would imagine any casualties will be taken to larger towns in the region, places perhaps like Aylesbury. There's the Stoke Mandeville there, which deal very well with burns injury. That's just in Buckinghamshire, just over the border, and would be maybe 20 miles away.
Enda Brady, for now, many thanks.
Let's try and get an indication as to why the police are so keen to move people even further away from the incident. Tony Moore from the Institute of Civil Defence Disaster Studies is back on the line with us. Tony, the police, it would appear, seem still very concerned.
Yes, I would think so. I mean, this is likely to go on for some considerable time. I mean, it's reminiscent of the Flixborough explosion in 1974, but that was a chemical plant. But if you think back to the Turkish earthquake in 1999, with the oil refinery at Izmit went up in flames, and I think it took something like 5 days to put it out.
Yes, you would imagine that the amount of oil that is held at this particular site, if it is indeed servicing a number of the airports in the southeast, would be immense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not a fire officer and haven't been a fire officer, but I would think this is going to take some considerable time to put out. And there is no indication yet, it doesn't seem as though, as to whether there's any oil tank sort of still whole, as it were. And I suspect the police are concerned that there may be more explosions. I mean, I should say the police, in terms of the evacuation area, will be taking the advice of the fire chief and other experts there, probably from the company.
I'm no expert on fires like yourself, Tony, but something I would imagine is like we've seen with oil wells in the past. They just burn and burn.
Absolutely,
they're so ferocious that you can't put that kind of flame out.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to put out, I think, and you're probably right there that they'll have to wait until most of the fuel is gone, particularly in relation to the damaged tanks.
I guess they'll be desperate to try and cut off those additional tanks that may still have the possibility of igniting, but one would imagine that the heat in that area is so intense.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if the fire service can, and I would think it's unlikely given the size of the disaster here, but if they're close to the scene, they're more likely to be putting their hoses on the whole tanks to try and cool them down and stop them going up than they are in terms of actually fighting the fire itself.
Try and give us an idea of how you think that the police are actually attacking this at the moment. You know, they obviously want to get close enough to work out what happened, but there must be great concern as well of getting ambulance crews into the region, because we can only assume that the nature of the business, that people work 24 hours a day these days, that there are people caught up in this.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that the fire service will be mainly doing that, because I would think probably looking at the flames and the smoke, etc., they'd probably need breathing apparatus if they were going into some of the areas close to the scene of the fire. So I suspect that the fire service will actually be searching for survivors now rather than the police. The police will have set up a gold control, as they call it, probably at their headquarters, and they will be liaising very closely with the fire service, the ambulance service, and, as I said previously, the county emergency planning department, who will be responsible for setting up any rest centres for those who are being evacuated.
Disaster expert Tony Moore, thank you very much for that. Thank you everyone for your emails, text messages on the latest situation. I've just had another one through. Now this one's interesting. Christine, who lives in Taunton. Now think how far away that is. She said she thought she heard 5 or 6 fireworks going off. Now it's obviously bound to sound like fireworks from that kind of distance. Just shows you that people are aware of this. Well, that must be, what, 150 miles away, maybe more than that? I am guessing at this stage. Someone living in Farnborough suggests that they heard the explosion at 4 minutes past 6. People in Wimbledon in southwest London were woken up by this. Andrew Barton, who used to live in California, first thought that this was some sort of earthquake, the way it moved his house so violently. So lots of people apparently are now queuing for petrol in the area. They're worried about shortages. Not sure that's going to be the case, but keep your text messages and emails coming in. We've got 2 email addresses, news.plan@bskyb.com, and I think our news@sky.com is up and running again. So keep your messages coming in. Thank you.
Let's talk to Ian Hutchison from the Total UK Oil Company. And Ian, I gather that your firm has some links with the Buncefield fuel depot.
Yes, it's a joint venture site between Total UK and Texaco.
And just tell us what you know about exactly what is taking place there today.
Well, firm details about the incident aren't yet known. We have been able to contact our 2 members of staff at the terminal, and we can confirm that both are safe. However, we have no further information about other people at the terminal. Our first priority is to ensure the safety of all those affected by this situation, and we're doing everything possible to support the emergency services and are working closely with them to bring it under control.
One viewer did write into us, Ian, earlier on saying that they believed that there was an oil pipeline from the Buncefield fuel depot to Heathrow Airport. Are you able to tell us whether or not that's true?
I'll have to check on that. I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I know there is a pipeline from Buncefield Terminal to Lindsay Oil Refinery. Yes, actually I can confirm that there is a pipeline to which services Heathrow. I'm not sure, however, that it goes directly to it.
Ian, you say that thanks.
Well, unfortunately, we really don't have any further information about other people at the terminal. However, we're doing